$12 billion. That's what one recent analysis says New York City just lost. Not from a recession, not from a natural disaster. From one video the mayor posted on Instagram on 15th April 2026. Zohran Mamdani filmed himself standing outside a building at 220 Central Park South. It's the same building where in 2019 a hedge fund billionaire named Ken Griffin bought a most expensive home even sold in United States. $238 million for an apartment. Mamdani said in the video, quote, "When I ran for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich. Today we are taxing the rich." 72 hours later, Ken Griffin was on CNBC filing permits in Miami. And that's what just the first billionaire to leave. Hit subscribe because this one gets uncomfortable. April 15th, tax day. Mamdani's office released a 2-minute video announcing a new proposal, a pied-à-terre tax, in plain English, a yearly fee on luxury properties in New York City worth more than $5 million, where the owner doesn't actually live there for full time. Mamdani said in the video, quote, "This is specially designed for the richest of the rich, those who store their wealth in New York City's real estate, but who don't actually live here." Then he directly named Ken Griffin, called out his $238 million penthouse, filmed his announcement standing on the sidewalk directly outside. Now on the surface, this was supposed to be a populist win. Tax the rich, fund the city. $5.4 billion budget deficit starting you down. A terror tax has been kicking around Albany for years without much traction. But within 72 hours, that video triggered the most expensive game of chicken in New York City's modern financial history. To understand why, you need to understand who Ken Griffin actually is. Ken Griffin is the founder and the CEO of Citadel, one of the largest hedge funds in the world. Net worth over $51 billion. According to Forbes, his firm and his people have paid nearly $2.3 billion in New York City and the state taxes over last 5 years. Griffin's response to Mamdani's video came in a CNBC interview at a Mikan Institute Global Conference. He called the video, quote, "creepy and weird." He said it put him, quote, "in harm's way." He referenced 2024 assassination of the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, which happened just blocked from that same penthouse. And then Griffin did 3 things that mattered. First, he told CNBC that Citadel had already filed a permit in Miami, adding several 100,000 square feet of a new office space. Quote, "We will add far more jobs in Miami as a new decade as an immediate direct consequences of Mayor's poor decision." Second, he threatened to cancel a $6 billion development at 350 Park Avenue, a super tall office tower for Citadel, 15,000 permanent jobs. Now, a quote, a real topic of debate. Third, Griffin said one sentence that told you exactly what this was really about. Quote, "Looking at what Mamdani just did to me, I triggered the trauma. I went through the Chicago because Ken Griffin has done this before." Rewind to 2022. Ken Griffin had built Citadel in Chicago over 3 decades. His firm employed thousands. He donated hundreds of millions to Chicago's institution. Then, Illinois' political leadership shifted hard towards progressive tax proposals. Griffin publicly clashed with then Governor J.B. Pritzker over a proposed graduated income tax. Chicago's crime, its business climate, its political tone, all of it, in Griffin's own word at that time, made him feel like the enemy. So in June 2022, he announced Citadel was moving its global headquarters to Miami. Not because one of the tax, because city made him feel unwelcome. What happened to Chicago after Griffin left? That is, city's downtown office vacancy rate hit record high by 2024. Illinois' high earner outmigrated. The Chicago public school budget held within, and Chicago's per capita revenue growth fell behind every peer city in the region. Nobody at City Hall in New York wants to sit with the fact that Griffin has now publicly drawn parallel himself. He didn't leave Chicago because one of policy. He left because the city stopped being welcome. On April 15th in 2 minutes video, Mamdani just made him feel exactly the same. Ken Griffin was not only the one. Within 2 weeks of that video, Mark Rowan, the CEO of Apollo Global Management, announced Apollo was preparing to open a new hub outside New York, Florida, or Texas under consideration. About one employed, roughly, matches Apollo's current New York headcount. Apollo manages over $900 billion in assets. Its paid estimated $1.28 billion in income tax in 2025. Then came Stephen Roth, the chairman of Bernardo Realty Trust, one of the largest commercial real estate owner in Manhattan. Roth called Mamdani rhetoric, quote, irresponsible and dangerous. He said the phrase tax the rich when used with anger was quote as hateful as someone disgusting racial slurs. Bill Ackman, the CEO of Pershing Square, went on X to defend Griffin publicly. Quote, non-resident who spend millions of dollars on New York apartment help drive New York's economy. We should be applauding Ken for spending $238 million in New York, not attacking him for doing so. And behind these three publicly named, there's what the New York Post called a quote, silent wave of businesses quite quitting the city. Nobody at City Hall knows how deep the exit list actually goes. Now here's the number nobody wants you to see. According to a 2026 analysis from a National Taxpayer Union Foundation, New York State has share of America's millionaire dropped from 12% in 2013 to 8.7% by 2022. Had that share stayed steady, New York would be collecting at least $12 billion more in tax revenue every single year. 12 billions every year. For a scale, that's more than the entire annual budget of NYPD, more than the total capital budget of the MTA, almost half of the annual budget of a New York City Department of Education. The Partnership for New York City, a pre-business coalition, estimate that Mamdani's rhetoric puts 2,700 financial industry jobs directly in risk, plus $168 million in state and city tax revenue every year. But the deeper number is this. Financial service accounts for nearly 1 in 10 private sector jobs in New York City. And it was the fastest growing sector in the city during 2025, expanding 3% while other industries slowed. So when Ken Griffin says he's moving Citadel jobs to Miami, that's not just one billionaire living. That's the construction workers who build his office, legal team that services his deals, marketing agencies, delivery drivers, restaurant around his headquarters. The ripple runs through the entire regular economy of the city. Now here's the part that makes the whole story stranger. According to reporting by CNN Business, Ken Griffin $238 million penthouse, the most expensive home ever sold in America, is valued by New York City for tax purposes at just $9.4 million. Read that again. Purchase price $238 million, tax valuation $9.4 million. Under Mamdani's proposed pied-à-terre tax, Griffin would pay a small annual fees based on that assessed value. A rounding error in his portfolio. It wouldn't dent his fortune. It wouldn't fund the city. It wouldn't change the affordability crisis, which means the tax itself was never really the problem. The problem was the signal, the video, the public targeting, the billionaire own home used as a form. And that is the part every business owner in New York City is watching. Because if the mayor of New York will film himself outside a billionaire's front door to promote a tax policy, there's the same logic can be pointed at anyone. Governor Kathy Hochul has since rejected Mamdani's broader income hikes on the wealthy. She has publicly urged, quote, patriotic millionaire to return New York from Florida. Meanwhile, Mamdani has continued to float new tax proposals. The city's own governor is now openly working against the mayor's rhetoric. So here's where the New York City stands right now. a $5.4 billion budget deficit, a tax base already thinning, Citadel filing permits in Miami, Apollo scouting Florida and Texas, real estate billionaire openly hostile, Wall Street executives quote quite quitting the city, and a mayor campaign on taxing the rich to fund the city. Those two facts are in direct tension. The city needs the wealthy to stay and need to tax them more. And right now, nobody at City Hall has publicly planned for what happens when the next billionaire decides when Miami looks better. Ken Griffin didn't leave Chicago because one policy. He left the city because city made him feel like enemy. On April 15th, in a 2-minute video film on Central Park South, the mayor of New York just made him feel exactly the same way. So tell me in the comments, is Mamdani's approach principal populism, or is this the beginning of a Chicago repeat that New York can't afford? Hit like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop asking who really pays the bill.